Okay, here we are at the next stop on the Grand Canyon North Rim field trip, where we're going to get a great look at the Paleozoic sequence of rocks. First, we'll start at some views at Bright Angel Point. Then we'll go around the corner and take a look at Transept Canyon, and then have a long hike down the North Kaibab Trail, where we get really up close and personal with the suite of Paleozoic rocks. So first of all, where is it? Transept Canyon is this canyon there. Bright Angel Point is located approximately there at the end of that peninsula, and the North Kaibab Trail goes down that canyon there. So let's take a closer look. Let's zoom in here on a box roughly that size, look in satellite view. Okay, here we are. Here's the main road that leads into the Grand Canyon North Rim towards the Visitor Center, which are located on this peninsula of land here. Okay, the North Rim Visitor Center, the lodge, a restaurant, a small market, etc. Those sort of things are located here. The North Rim Campground is located, roughly speaking, there. So Bright Angel Point, first of all, you can kind of make it out, is along a faint trail down at the end of this peninsula of land here. The images that we're going to see taken from there are looking towards the southeast. Transept Canyon is this one. It's the one adjacent to this bit of land with the visitor services. So we're going to be taking some looks at Transept Canyon from approximately there, looking that way, and then here looking back towards the northwest up the canyon. And then we're going to take a hike down the North Kaibab Trail, which leaves from approximately here. It travels down Roaring Springs Canyon, which is this one, and our hike will take us to approximately there. The trail continues down Roaring Springs Canyon where it meets Bright Angel Canyon, and then heads down Bright Angel Canyon all the way down to the Colorado River here. But our hike will end approximately there. All right, let's go have a look at the geologic map and cross-section. So again, here is Bright Angel Point. We'll be looking towards the southeast, roughly. This is Transept Canyon over to the left, and we'll be looking that way, and then from somewhere approximately here, looking back up the canyon. And then we're going to hike down Roaring Springs Canyon. You can see the trail here. It switchbacks and heads down Roaring Springs Canyon, and we'll stop, roughly speaking, about there. So the geologic map illustrates nicely the upper Paleozoic sequence of rocks. And what we'll be seeing today is roughly from the Bright Angel Shale and upwards. Our hike ended just before we reached the Tapete Sandstone below. So we're going to be seeing the Bright Angel Shale and most of the rocks upwards. Some of them are kind of vegetated and it's hard to see them, but we'll be seeing most of them on the way down. Okay, here we are at Bright Angel Point, looking towards the southeast at sunset, or very near sunset. So there are big shadows over here, but that's okay. But you can pretty clearly see the uppermost part of the Paleozoic sequence of rocks anyway. This here is the Red Wall Limestone. Above it is the Supai group, shales and sandstones. Above that is the Hermit Shale there. Above that, this white layer, which is you can see virtually everywhere in the park, is the Coconino Sandstone. Above that, the Toroweap unit, which is a sandy limestone. It's kind of a sandstone limestone mixture of various proportions depending on where you are. And above that, the Kaibab limestone, which we're also standing on here taking this picture. To our left is Roaring Springs Canyon. It's in the shadows, but the North Kaibab Trail hike will go down here and eventually meet up with Bright Angel Canyon, which is this canyon here, which also continues way down off to our right. So let's turn around and take a look to the right at a different time of day. Here we are looking at Transept Canyon. We're looking towards the south approximately. And again, we get a really nice look at the uppermost part of the Paleozoic sequence, where we have the Red Wall Limestone. Above that, the Supai group with a prominent cliff-forming member. This one is called the Esplanade Sandstone. That'll be important here in a few moments. It's the Esplanade Sandstone. That's part of the Supai group. It's the uppermost member, and it often forms a cliff like you see here. Above that is the Hermit Shale, Coconino Sandstone, Toro Weep, and on top the Kaibab. So let's take a little bit of walk down towards our left and turn around and look up the canyon. This is what you see. So now we're looking sort of up towards the end of Transept Canyon. And again, you can see even better here, perhaps the Redwall limestone, the Supai group with the Esplanade sandstone there, the Hermit Shale, Coconino Sandstone, Toro Weep, and Kaibab limestone above it. You can also see off to the right a very small bit of the Grand Canyon Lodge on the North Rim. There are a number of buildings behind it, a bunch of small cabins people can stay in, and the lodge has a very beautiful view looking out towards the main part of Bright Angel Canyon and the Grand Canyon beyond it. All right, now let's take a hike down the North Kaibab Trail. It is one of the most popular trails in the canyon for good reason. It has spectacular hiking opportunities, spectacular views of geology in the canyon in general. The North Kaibab Trail leaves the North Rim a little bit north of the main visitor services, which are here. The trail starts here and heads down this canyon, which is Roaring Springs Canyon. I'll explain why it's called Roaring Springs here in a bit. And our hike will end, roughly speaking, there, but the trail does continue, meets up with Bright Angel Canyon, and then heads down to the river down there. So I'm going to be showing you below, linked below, showing you the hike in two ways. One is through traditional photographs. So here's some examples of the thing you're going to see. We're going to stop at the spot called Coconino Overlook, which supplies or shows you very nicely the faulting that happens within the canyon. The Grand Canyon is riddled with faults, some of them quite old, Proterozoic, some of them much younger, as young as 15 million years old. And the Coconino Overlook is a great place to see how rocks have moved in those fault zones. We'll also see some examples of the contacts between different units. This is a great example of where the Hermit Shale contacts the Coconino Sandstone. A little bit below that, we'll be going through a tunnel carved through the Esplanade Sandstone. So I mentioned the Esplanade Sandstone. Here it is. We'll be walking through it. The trail goes right through the sandstone. Also some great views of the Redwall limestone here, and apparently a very popular place for hikers to stop and rest. And below that, we'll see a great example of the Bright Angel Shale. This kind of green stuff here. The green stuff is shale, and intermixed with that are some layers of kind of purple sandstone that are still part of the Bright Angel Shale unit. A couple more things to note. We'll be walking down as far as Roaring Springs. So here's an example on the left. Here's the contact between the Bright Angel Shale here. Here's the Muav limestone. And here's the Redwall limestone. And this spot is important for this reason. Notice this sort of waterfall feature here. This is Roaring Springs. This is where water from rain and snow has percolated through the rocks above. So rain and snow has fell somewhere on the North Rim and slowly percolated down through all of these rocks and hit the contact between the Muav limestone and the Bright Angel Shale. The Bright Angel Shale, like most shales, is fairly impermeable to water. Water does not flow through it well. So what happens when water trickles down from rain and snow, when it hits these impermeable contacts, it then moves horizontally, or in this case, to the right, and here comes out of the surface, comes out on the surface and forms a spring called Roaring Springs, and then flows along the surface downhill. Roaring Springs is important because it is the water source for all of the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, of course, has a major river flowing through it, one of the major rivers in the western U.S., the Colorado River, but that's not where the water comes from that you drink at the canyon. The water at the Grand Canyon, both the south and north rim, comes from here. So here's a close-up view on the right of Roaring Springs. So right here, we take a close-up view of a picture here. That's there. And you can kind of see the infrastructure built up. Unfortunately, there's this tree in the way, but nonetheless, you can see there's a bunch of pipes coming out of it here. And this is the Grand Canyon's pipeline system. All of the water in the canyon comes out of Roaring Springs, which is then pumped with electric pumps uphill to both the south rim and the north rim. In total, the pipeline system is about 15 miles long. It was built between 1965 and 1970, and it's aging. It's broken down in a number of times, and the repairs are costly because the conditions of working in the canyon are quite hard. And so it's one of the concerns about the longevity and sustainability of the 5 million plus people who visit the Grand Canyon every year, how long this aging pipeline system is going to survive. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the North Kaibab Trail using regular photographs like you see here, but mostly through 360-degree images, these photospheres. And these I've annotated to try to show you some of the most interesting and important features. Now, when I take these 360 images, they are photospheres. Think of a photo wrapped around you in a sphere shape. When I edit them and annotate them, they get unfolded flat. And then I write on them, such as I've done here with yellow, and I draw arrows like this. So I write on them when they've been projected flat. But then when you see them, they're going to be projected back to a sphere. And sometimes when the writing that I do on the flat version of the image gets projected back to a sphere, it looks a little weird. In this case, it's pretty obvious what's going on. The Muev limestone I wrote along a flat line, but when it got projected back to a sphere, it kind of has this arc to it. In this case, it's fine. You can see it. You can clearly understand what I wrote and what the arrows are pointing at, etc. And sometimes it gets a little weird. Okay, so here's the annotation, but it's kind of almost upside down because of the way it was projected back to a sphere. So sometimes the annotations and arrows are kind of in weird places, and what you have to do is use your mouse and just grab the image and rotate it around, such as I've done here, so that you can read the annotation. You have to kind of turn the world on its side in order to read it, but then you can rotate it back to look at it flat again. Okay, that's the end of the introduction. Go take a look at the images, and I will see you soon.